my mouth so that people can hear me.
All right, Kyle, let's give it one more try.
This is Kyle Kobe. I'm talking out loud with words in sentences. Can you hear me?
All right, are we then set to begin?
Kurt, you ready? Yes. Commissioner Ashworth, the room is ready.
Okay, thank you, everybody. My name is Sharon Ashworth. I will be sitting in for Commissioner Luke Sinclair tonight. Welcome, everybody, to the July 26th Planning Commission meeting. First up, I'd like to have Becky Pepper give us the rules of the road for Zoom meetings, please.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you, Becky. First, before we get going, I want to extend a warm welcome to our newest Planning Commissioner, Charlie Thomas. If he would give a wave there. Welcome to the Planning Commission. We're glad to have you on board. Okay, so the first item up is to receive and amend our minutes from last month's meeting of June 21st and June 23rd. Does anybody have any amendments? Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Commissioner Carter, so
Carter?
moved.
A second?
Second, Commissioner Rexroad.
Commissioner Ashworth, the motion has been moved and seconded. Can I have a call of roll, Jeff, please?
Certainly. Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroad,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
I will abstain since I wasn't here for that meeting.
Motion passes 6-0 with one abstention.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashworth. Next thing on the agenda is to receive reports from any committees that have met over the past month. Any reports? All right, no reports. How about have we received any written communications from the public that are not in our packet this evening?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. All communications were included in your digital packet this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashworth, have we received any written communications from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. No additional communications this evening.
All right, Commissioner Ashworth, have we received any written action of any waiver requests determinations made by the city engineer?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. None this evening.
All right. Commissioner Ashworth, do any of the commissioners have any ex parte communications to report this month? No, seeing none. Moving on to, is there any declaration of abstentions from specific agenda items this evening? No, seeing none. Okay, so the next thing, Commissioner Ashworth, this next thing is general public comment. This is the time where we give the public an opportunity to speak on items in front of the Planning Commission that are not on our agenda for the evening. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment in general in the City Hall, in the commission meeting room?
Kyle Kobe, Planning, there's nobody in the room to provide general public comment.
Okay.
So I'm not seeing any digital hands going up.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Kyle, now. I mean, after all that testing.
Kyle Kobe with Planning, can you hear me a little bit better now?
A little better, yes. The volume's still a little low. Let me see.
So I can't, Kyle Kobe with Planning, I can confirm that there's nobody in the room to speak for general public comment, and so far I don't see any hands going up via Zoom either.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ashworth. All right, so then we'll get on to our regular agenda then for the evening. And the first item up is to consider making a finding, consider projects presented in the 2022-2026 capital improvement plan. Our role here this evening is to comment on the conformance with the city's Plan 2040 for conformance of the capital improvement plan with Plan 2040. So the staff presenting tonight are Brandon Thorngate and Danielle Bushcutter. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, that name. And I believe we have Brandon Thorngate.
Yep. Good evening, commissioners. Brandon Thorngate, Planning and Development Analyst. Danielle will not be joining us tonight, so you're stuck with me. So I'm not an expert on all of the projects in the CIP, but I can definitely try to help as much as possible. The item before you tonight is to, as you said, review and find in conformance with the comprehensive plan, the capital improvement plan for 2022 through 2026. Let me share my PowerPoint. Okay, great. So the item before you is to review the capital improvement plan for 2022 through 2026. This item comes to you by state statute, which requires a review of the capital improvement plan in reference to the comprehensive plan. Some benefits of a CIP, it gives an overall view of the development pattern in the city, and also allows us a long-range view of capital projects coming through It promotes coordination and allows us to more effectively budget operating costs over a 5-year period. Some of the things that we gain from the consistency of having this CIP is in categories like facilities and maintenance. A notable CIP project in that category this year is the multimodal transit facility. Infrastructure, notable project there would be reconstruction of East 23rd Street from the Haskell Bridge to city limits. And then also things such as equipment purchases and land acquisition for parklands or other city facilities projects. Looking at Plan 2040, most every chapter is supported or supports projects that are included in the CIP, and more detail on some of those items can be found in the staff report that was included in your packet. But Chapter 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 all have action items and elements that are supported by the projects in the CIP this year. And as such, staff has reviewed the CIP and suggests that you make a finding that the projects presented in the CIP are in conformance with Plan 2040 and recommend forwarding a recommendation for approval to the City Commission. With that, I will take any questions you might have.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you very much. Kyle, can you tell me if there's any member of the public in the chambers that wishes to speak on this item?
Kyle Kobe with planning. I can confirm there is no one here to speak on this item. And as of right now, I don't see any hands going up in Zoom either.
All right, Commissioner Ashworth, and I'll bring it back to the commission for comment. Commissioner Rexroad?
Yes, Commissioner Rexroad, I have a couple of questions. I think as I read through the staff report on this function of approval is per Kansas statute. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. KSA 12748 requires that the Planning Commission review the capital improvement plan for conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. And as I looked through, Commissioner Rexroad, again, as I looked through the list, I saw some 97 pages of individual project detail that for somebody like me to be able to meet the requirement of a statute on approval, I would need to understand what those things are. Is it the expectation that we approve at that kind of level? I know it's going to be one grand approval, but we're approving the entire package. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. If you had specific, and I would maybe defer to Becky or Jeff a little bit on this, but if you had specific projects that you had questions on or concerns about, you could include that in your recommendation to the City Commission,
Gotcha.
I believe.
Gotcha. Just because of the incredibly large amount of information there to consume and really only having seen that, just in this past week, I'm trying to get my head around how I might understand that with the kind of detail I need. So just a couple more questions if I can. Can you share what process is used that causes an item to be placed on this list? And was there anything done to filter through, is this consistent with our long-term planning or not?
Sure. So in order to be placed on the capital improvement plan, projects have to have a minimum estimated cost of $100,000 or a life expectancy of at least 2 years. And that gets them onto that, into that threshold of being a capital improvement plan. And from there, all projects are reviewed by a team of city staff who use scoring criteria that are in line with the city's strategic plan to basically rank those projects and see which ones, for lack of a better term, make the cut into the decision to whether they are funded or unfunded in that particular year's plan.
Okay, thank you. Just two more questions. This is a 5-year view, how often is this set of items reviewed? Is this just a one-time review and everything on this now is approved for us 5-year life, or do we come back and revisit this periodically based on things that might have changed?
Mhm. So this will come to you every year, and it's sort of redeveloped every year. This is the plan for 2022 through 2026. And as a part of next year's city budget process, we will develop a capital improvement plan for 2023 through 2027. So the years 2023 through 2026 are included in the current plan and will be re-examined next year and reprioritized based on needs and wants happening in the community.
Very good, thank you. Just one last question. Is there, was there anything as staff reviewed and prepared this document that showed up to Planning Commission staff as marginal or something that would require a deeper understanding to know that it does in fact fit in with our planning direction?
No, as the capital improvement plan is presented to you, it was found to be within conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, are there any other comments from, yes, Commissioner Shanklin?
Greg Shanklin, Planning Commissioner. On that last point, typically in the materials we're provided for any matter that comes before us, we receive the benefit of planning staff's professional opinion. And as I looked through this, I didn't see those words. So I wondered, this is a question for Mr. Crick. Could you confirm that it is your opinion that this is in conformity with the comprehensive plan?
Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services Director. Commissioner Shanklin, we do believe it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Planning staff works along with finance throughout the course of the CIP and the process. So we're very attuned to the items that are going on. Brandon is one of our budget team members that work there, and Amy Miller, our assistant director, is also on that team to kind of help vet the project. So we worked along the way as part of this is going on there. But based on our understanding of the capital improvement plan and Plan 2040, we believe it is in conformance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, any other yes? Commissioner Thomas?
Commissioner Thomas, when I looked at this material, I was a lot like Commissioner Rexford in saying that was a lot of information given to us last Tuesday. I did not read that we thought the things that were in that plan were necessarily things we approved of or thought should be there, but just that it was in conformance. Are we saying that we agree that everything in that plan is what we think should be there? Or just that it is in conformance with the 2040 plan?
Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Thomas, you're correct. It's not necessarily if the item should be in the capital improvement plan, but more about if the item is there, does it conform with the plan? The actual items, the programming, the timing, and the funding is left to the city commission and their discretion on those items. It's mainly just that check to see if there's anything in here that would not meet that conformance requirement, not so much the programming of the item.
Well, Commissioner Thomas, I would say if staff since staff reviewed this and looked at it, then there would be nothing that I would know that would say it is not in conformance. So staff has done their job. Staff says it's in conformance. Then I have nothing to say other than I would have to agree with them.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Ashworth, any of the other commissioners wish to comment? Yes, Commissioner Carpenter.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. For those, this is your first time through. I think, as Jeff pointed out, we're just at a high level view, kind of scroll through the list, see if anything jumps out that doesn't seem should be there, basically. and our opportunity to ask questions about it. I mean, this has been reviewed by the city commission in their budgetary process to be in compliance with the strategic plan. And I'll just have to say, we don't have you're talking about how much information is here. Commissioner Butler is the only person here that will remember back when we would get this, when they delivered printed packets to our houses prior to the meetings. And when this one came out, it was incredibly thick. And it went down to the purchases of individual trash trucks in there. So we don't have that now. And a lot of the questions I've just heard are the same questions that the new commissioners ask every time. This is the first time we see it. But the one thing to keep in mind that the planning departments reviewed these. So we're getting the recommendation that they are already in conformance with both the city's strategic plan and the comprehensive plan. And a lot of these, if any of them trigger any changes, site plans, variances, we'll see it. So there's that review mechanism that comes up too. So if anything requires anything that's under our purview for approval, we'll see it again. So at this point, as Commissioner Thomas mentioned, we have kind of mostly rely on the city commission and staff that all of these are there. Our input will come if any of these are extending into new areas, or like one that I'm noticing is not here is the cost of building a new water tower at Water Tower Park. The only thing that it says about Water Tower Park is Park and Rec is going to do some reconfiguration. So that was a big one. So we saw that water tower issue was on this, 5-year plan and kept popping up, mostly unfunded, but it was kind of a heads up to the public that these are projects that the city's going to undertake at some point. And periodically we'll get somebody who comes in and comments, but for the most part, it is just high level. And if nothing just jumps out at you, it's pretty much pro forma that we just approve this with the knowledge that we'll see anything that triggers our review in the future. Like the multimodal transfer facility will probably come back to us at some point. But this is just budgeting it. This is not the actual plan. This is all about budget for the most part.
Commissioner Ashford, thank you, Commissioner Carpenter, for that perspective, especially for our newer members. And speaking of higher level comment, I actually do have one sort of higher level comment to make about while I do believe the comprehensive, the capital improvement plan conforms with Plan 2040, I did note in going back through some of the history of capital improvement plans, just how often we are repairing some of our major streets, Wakarusa, Castle, 23, and I just want to make a note for the City Commission that this goes to is that our residential and smaller collector streets are in really tough condition, especially if we're going to look at things like Chapter 4, Lawrence Neighborhood and Housing. We talk about multimodal transportation systems, and I'm finding that biking on a lot of these roads is rather hazardous. And of course, a lot of people are biking and walking and trying to run in the streets because the sidewalks are bad. But the streets I'm finding are also quite hazardous in some of our residential areas. So I just want to make note of that, and eventually would like to see some consideration of how we balance that out between our major roads and some of our minor roads in the capital improvement plans. The smaller road repairs are all lumped together into road maintenance. So there's always that in the budget. But I am noting and have been in discussion with several members of the community that have also noted and made note of the condition of our smaller roads. So I'm just saying that for general comment. Does anybody else have any general comment about the capital improvement plan before we move to a vote or a motion? right. Commissioner Carter.
David Carter, Planning Commissioner. Madam Vice Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion if you believe we're ready.
Please do.
I move that we make a finding that the projects presented in the 2022 through 2026 Capital Improvement Plan are in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan and forward a recommendation to the City Commission for approval.
Do we have a second? I saw Commissioner Shanklin first for second.
I'll second.
Okay. And any further discussion? Seeing none, can I ask Jeff to call the roll, please?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroth,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you, Jeff. Our next item, we will need to recess to consider this item. We are going to consider a conditional use permit for SNL Storage LLC. This is a recess to consider with a joint meeting with the Lecompton Planning Commission. Can you tell me, Kyle, is anybody representing the Lecompton Planning Commission with us this evening?
Kyle Kobe with Planning. I don't think any of the
I'm
names.
seeing in the Zoom meeting are matching any of the commissioners who I have on my list. It's always possible that one of the names might differ from the person who's actually logging in, but as of right now, I don't see any representatives.
Commissioner Ashworth, and please correct on the protocol, do we still need to recess to consider this item?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services Director. Seeing that there are no individuals who are here for Lecompton on that end, it is fine to proceed as the body right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashworth. Okay, then I will ask the staff. Kyle Kobe is the planner who will be presenting this particular item.
Thank you very much. Kyle Kobe with
Planning. This application proposes a conditional use permit to expand the existing boat RV storage use at property addressed as 568 North 1800 Road. The subject property is zoned AG2, which permits the proposed use with a conditional use permit. The surrounding area is a combination of AG1 and AG2 districts. This use was originally approved in 2002. Over the years, several subsequent approvals for expansion have taken place. The most recent expansion was approved in 2019, which allowed an additional storage building on the property. The applicant proposes the addition of 2 new structures for boat RV storage, as well as an uncovered gravel area. If approved, the storage capacity on this property would increase from 82 rentable spaces to 162 total spaces. The proposed expansion would add approximately 2 acres of building and/or gravel area to the property. The majority of the property, including the already developed areas, contains prime farmland in the form of Type 2 and Type 3 soils. Douglas County Zoning Code states that up to 40% of a property may be required to be protected in cases like this. While environmentally sensitive lands are present at this location, in this case, staff is not recommending that the remaining area be set aside for protection due to the existing conditions of the property, the surrounding context, and the relatively small amount of land which would be preserved at this point. The applicant has reached out to a representative from the Lecompton Township regarding improvements to the right-of-way. These discussions are ongoing, and final approval of the conditional use permit is contingent on township approval, as indicated in the recommended conditions of approval. The applicants also indicated that a code-compliant lighting plan will be provided prior to release of the proposed conditional use permit. Additional coordination with Free State Electric will be needed to determine the exact location and detail for additional lighting, and once that information is available, that would be packaged together and sent in to staff. So in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the proposed boat RV storage use expansion, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I believe that the applicant is here with us tonight via Zoom as well.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you, Kyle. So the applicant, Ben Sheffley, and Ben Sheffley, would you like to present anything to the commission? You have 10 minutes.
This has been Shepley, S&L Storage. I do not have anything to add at this time. Brad Nautical is also on call with us, and he might have something.
This is Brad Noctigal, one of the owners of SNL Storage. Can you hear me okay, commissioners?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I do not have anything to add at this point either, other than what Kyle presented for the conditional use permit.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you both. And Kyle, are there any members of the public here to comment, either in the chambers or online?
Kyle Kobe with planning. There's nobody in the room to comment on this item. As of right now, I'm not seeing any digital hands going up either.
All right, thank you. This is Commissioner Ashworth. I'll bring it back to the commission for questions to staff or applicants.
Go.
Commissioner Rexroad.
Hi, Commissioner Rexroad. Thanks. Question for the applicant. Have these structures already been built and you're just seeking the conditional use permit to use them, or is there still construction to be done?
There's still there's 3 structures out there, actually 4 structures with 82 stalls that all already fall under a conditional use permit previously approved. The new permit, the new conditional use permit would allow us to build another 1 or 2 buildings and a gravel lot if we desire to.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, any other questions from commissioners? Any comments on the conditions that are placed on this conditional use permit? Commissioner Carpenter, you unmuted yourself. Did you have a comment?
Well, Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner, I guess I have a question for staff. There was an addendum that was sent out, but I can't identify where that came from. Were these questions from the county? Was this some other individual that had questions? And who answered some of these questions? Because there are some interesting points in those 2 pages, but I don't have a context.
Kyle Kobe with planning. That addendum that you're referring to are comments that were provided by Douglas County Zoning and Code staff. They were discussed with the applicant.
You see the answers in red are from the first round of comments that we got back from the applicant. The subsequent comments were discussed via directly with the applicant over the phone. So they were addressed with them, but we don't have written responses to those comments.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. Who's responsible for the road maintenance for this section of 1800 Road?
Kyle Kobe with planning. The maintenance for this stretch of the road is under the purview of the Lecompton Township. I spoke with a representative of the Lecompton Township earlier today. He confirmed that they had started talks with the applicant about improvements that would be made to the right-of-way. Like I said before, they're still refining what the details of that will be, which is why we have that condition placed, or that recommended condition placed for approval, to provide them time to figure out, whatever the township requires and the mechanism through which that they'll get that, which we would need to have comment from them back before we release the conditional use permit, but ultimately subject to the township.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. I drove out there and that road's pretty ragged. It needs a lot of upkeep. So since most of the traffic on this road is for this facility, we don't have anyone from the township here, but I was just wondering if Tonya or you, Kyle, would be able to comment on how the townships usually approach this type of situation when one commercial use puts the greatest, causes the most use or degradation of a roadway. How does that usually work?
Kyle Kobe with planning. I will attempt to answer that as best I can. My understanding is that, it is to a certain degree a case-by-case basis.
In this particular case, the stretch of road is shorter and there are fewer other, people taking direct access off of that. So it is a little bit easier to identify where those trips would be coming from. I know that just in talking with Casey with the Lecompton Township and then with the applicant today, that was a part of their conversation that, ultimately a lot of that improvement would be for the people who'd be coming to this property. I don't know that I could comment broad strokes on how it typically works, but I know in this case, every time I spoke with the township representative, he essentially just communicated to me that, once they get in contact, they begin a dialogue and they kind of, I believe he might have taken a trip out there and assessed the site to see what kind of impacts there might be, what kind of requirements they might have. And then once they were able to get in contact, I believe the majority of what is being discussed is improvements to the road itself. I don't have specifics on, what those requirements are going to be or what that impact will be. Like I said, I think that's still being refined, but I don't know that I could give a more, broad strokes answer to that question other than the township works with the applicant depending on, on a case-by-case basis.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. Thank you, Kyle. That helped a little bit. Is this the final issuance of this conditional use permit? Is this any way governed by an agreement between this landowner and the Lecompton Township? Would that agreement have to be in place before they could go forward and build?
Kyle Kobe with planning.
The way that the condition of approval was structured, the intent was to, again, without knowing what the mechanism will be or what the impacts are that the township is going to request, work on. We wanted to leave it, I guess, open-ended might not be the right term, but it's just subject to the Lecompton Township informing us that they have what they need. Again, I think it depends on what it is that they wind up landing on, but yes, we would require that the Lecompton Township folks let us know that they have everything in place in writing and locked in before we release the conditional use permit, whatever that might be.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. Thank you. And that helps a lot to know that. And I guess just in a general comment, we've had multiple requests for rezonings for boat and trailer storage. And I think almost all of them we've turned down because they were contrary to the area plan without looking at the entire area plan. But what we have here is an existing boat storage area that with this expansion might take off some of that pressure of other places. And if these other details can be worked out, I don't have much problem with it. I do have a little concern about the stormwater. I mean, this is going to be a lot of impervious surface rush going to the east towards the one neighbor's house, and statements in the document say this either goes into Coon Creek or goes into the neighbor's pond and then into Coon Creek. So how prone is that pond to flooding into the neighbor's property now? And what difference would all this additional impervious surface make? Does anybody have any projections for that?
Kyle Kobe with planning. I think the best answer I can give you there is that was something that, in my first conversation with Casey at the
Township, one of the things I brought up was if there would need to be improvements for stormwater infrastructure as well. Again, my understanding is that road surfacing is the primary thing that they're talking about with the applicant. I don't have any information beyond that, other than that the township folks took a look at that as well. As far as I know, they're not requiring additional infrastructure for that at this time, to my knowledge, again. But I believe go ahead, Tonya.
Tonya Voigt, Zoning Director. As for the township component, we don't get quite as concerned. We do have a section in the zoning regulations that states that any development that occurs cannot negatively impact a neighboring property owner or someone else on a different piece of private property. And so we do get drainage complaint calls quite often. Sometimes when people terrace or they run their tile drains from their basement in different directions, or they're building up a pad site for a house or accessory building. And so the reason that we had put that comment in and asked for that to be included was just, I don't know that there's really any way to tell without calculations probably done by a hydraulic engineer or a drainage study done by a hydraulic engineer to be able to tell how much impervious surface is being created and then how much that will add to the neighbor's pond and to the ditch system and ultimately then to the neighbor's pond. So, and we did point out that concern with the applicants early on, and we just don't have an answer for it unless we have more information.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. This is kind of an odd situation. If the neighbor was to complain after the conditional use permit was granted and these structures and the gravel's all put in, I mean, it's already there. So what would the remedy be if the county and the county commission found that this was such a nuisance to the neighbors in the future? This is all hypothetical. But if it was found to be a nuisance to the neighbors in the future, you know, through that whole process up through the county commission, what would the remedy be in that type of case?
So we have had some sites, Tonya Boyd, zoning director, some sites that have had to do some drainage studies in order to develop. The sod shop is an example of that. And they were required to put in a detention basin and hold all of their stormwater runoff on their own property. But those calculations were ran and they knew, you know, what that was creating and how much more of a, you know, stormwater issue that was on that site because they ran those calculations. And so in this case, I think we would maybe want to ask for a condition or something to be added that if we do have issues with drainage, that then we could bring it back to the commission and discuss requiring a drainage study. I think we're very open to options. We just wanted to, you know, try to come up with some type of solution as well in case there are complaints.
Carpenter Planning Commissioner, if that situation arose, would the county, you know, issue something to say stop operating until we had this type of review and remediation? And I'm seeing a negative head shake from Tonya, so I guess no, it would continue to operate and go through that process then. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Tonya Boyd, zoning director. We typically, if we have issues and we have complaints, we work towards a resolution and we allow them to operate while we're working towards the resolution to compliance. And so if a property owner wasn't willing to work with us and wasn't willing to like go through the next steps that are needed, then we would issue a stop work order or something like that. But typically that's not our style and not the way we prefer to post sites or placard sites. We really want to work with the applicants to come up with a solution and then go through that process to get compliant.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. Thank you, Tonya. I'm going to be quiet now and let somebody else ask questions.
This is Commissioner Ashworth. I noticed that Commissioner Shanklin's mute is off. Did you have something you wanted? Did you have a question or comment, Commissioner Shanklin?
This is Greg Shanklin, Commissioner. Yes, although I hadn't raised my hand, your suspicion is correct. This is one of those cases where I would have expected more public commentary, and we've run across a number of those in recent meetings, and it's perhaps there are just a small number of neighbors that might be concerned with this. I don't know if the approvals that were noted in the materials are ones from someone who would be affected by the runoff. I wasn't quite certain about that, so I don't know if they've specifically agreed to this. But when a facility like this was proposed in my neighborhood, there were more than a dozen people that came out expressing various concerns about, traffic and runoff and unsightliness and that sort of thing. I don't know if there's an explanation for why there isn't more public interest in this.
Commissioner Ashworth, are there any other commissioners who would like to comment or have a question? Can I ask if either the applicants would like to discuss the runoff issue? If you have any comments on the runoff from the new construction.
This is Brad Noctegal, one of the applicants. Commissioners, you make a very good point. Although we are applying for a conditional use permit for 2 more buildings and 1 gravel lot, it's high likelihood that we're only going to add 1 more building and not 2 buildings and a gravel parking lot. We went through this process 1.5 years or 2 years ago, as noted earlier, and didn't understand fully the process really. And so we only applied for 1 building at that time, thinking that was going to be our end game. But we have so much demand, as Commissioner Carpenter alluded to, because of the shortage of boat and RV and camper storage in the county. We have so much demand that we're getting 2 and 3 and 4 calls a day from people that need these services. So it's begging us to explore some more stalls out there. And really what we're talking about probably is 40 more stalls in 1 more building that's 70 by 240 with gravel entrances on each side. And one of the sides, the north side, is already a gravel entrance that's existing. So really it's a 1 building with a south gravel entrance is probably our end game for all intents and purposes. I guess one other thing I'd add is I've been a customer out there before I was an owner for at least 10 years. And throughout that 10-year period have traveled that frontage road and also not noticed any impervious water issues. Obviously, there wasn't as many buildings out there, but it is over 10 acres of property. And so there's a pretty good distance between any neighbors and our property as well. Ben, I don't know if you have anything to add as well.
Ben Shepley, SNL Storage. No, I know, looking overhead, there is a storm drain that goes underneath I-70, a large culvert that feeds that pond also. And I don't know where that comes from, or, I don't know if it just comes from underneath and, feeds from I-70, but that pond, that creek that goes through there is the lowest point until it hits, it's a valley that pretty much goes through there that I can see looking overhead for what I can find out online. And it feeds into the creek, and then it feeds into the Kansas River northway. But other than that, the only other things I could kind of say is that frontage road. I spoke with Casey at the Lecompton Township, and he confirmed that they haven't done any maintenance to that road in over 2 years. So any gravel road or any road that gets any kind of traffic that doesn't get any maintenance in over 2 years is going to look pretty bad. So, and I don't know what kind of agreement they had with that, because I think KTA, Kansas Turnpike Association, they have an entrance right there that's off that county road. So not only is it us that is, our tenants are entering that way, but you've got large equipment, you've got trucks, you've got state trucks that are emergency vehicles that are using that road also. But I know they installed that. They put the asphalt down, and the understand that I have is KTA has not helped with the upkeep of that at all since they did that.
Commissioner Ashford, thank you both, Mr. Nottigal and Mr. Shepley, for those clarifying comments. Do any of the commissioners have any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll just make one comment myself, Commissioner Ashworth, that I really took note of the commentary in the staff report about this being an existing structures for the purpose of boat and RV storage. and that it might well relieve pressure on other pieces of land to have this business in this location where it already exists. So if there are no other comments, oh, Commissioner Carter, you have unmuted. Would you like to? No?
No, I guess I hadn't realized I'd unmuted myself. David Carter, Commissioner, but I guess maybe subconsciously I wanted to say something. I think addressing some of Commissioner Shanklin's observations about, the cases we've had before, from a site selection perspective, I think this seems to have the benefit of not interfering or not provoking a lot of excess traffic among many residential neighbors. Being a road that goes essentially directly to the site, and then from there directly to East 600 Road, and just a few hundred feet from the Farmers Turnpike, it seems to me to have the benefit of not emptying directly onto a major artery, and yet being close enough that it's a fairly direct route, to Clinton Lake. So I honestly have no particular objections to this request, and want to thank the other commissioners, especially Commissioner Carpenter, for the very insightful questions. So I'm inclined to support this.
Brad Noctegal, SNL applicant. One other observation that Commissioner Carter made is we're 9 miles from Clinton Lake, but we're also 9 miles from Perry Lake as well. So it is centrally located between those two recreational properties.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you. If there are no other comments or questions from the commission, could anybody entertain a motion?
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. I guess I had one more question. This is just a process. There's an existing conditional use permit that covers what's there now. So the one that's before us tonight, that would include what's already existing plus an expansion, and the old one disappears. Is that how this works, Kyle?
Kyle Kobe with planning. Yes.
This conditional use permit would be, if approved, if it made it through Board of County Commissioners as well, this would be the conditional use permit for the property. So the 5-year, 10-year time limits would go from approval of this application.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, would anybody like to make a motion on this conditional use permit? Commissioner Rexroad.
Sure. I'm happy to make a motion. Just a question. Do we want to read all 4 of the conditional items into the motion to approve? Or just that general first paragraph?
Commissioner Ashworth, you can read the paragraph at the beginning, but we can always just subject to the conditions put forth in the staff report.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Rexroad. I move we approve the conditional use permit CUP-21-00184 for a boat RV storage use located at 568 North 1800 Road, and forward to the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation for approval based on the findings of fact in the body of the staff report and subject to the conditions in that report.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Butler seconds the motion. Any discussion? Further discussion? No? Okay, Jeff, can I ask you to call the roll, please?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes?
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroad?
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you all. Thank you to the applicants. And our next item number 3 on our agenda, is to consider rescinding the minimum maintenance road designation for East 1000 Road. And our staff who is going to report on that or give the summary of that is Avery Kerner.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Avery Kerner, and I'm a planner with the Planning Division. This evening, you actually have two minimum maintenance road items before you that will be presented on separately. The first request before you this evening is item MM-21-00002, and this is a request by the Board of Highway Commissioners of the Willow Springs Township to rescind the minimum maintenance road designation on a portion of East 1000 Road between 029 North and North 100 Road. A location map can be found on page 2 of the staff report provided in your agenda packet this evening. East 1000 Road, located between the South Douglas County line and North 100 Road, was originally opened in 1870 as a public full maintenance road. This road remained a public full maintenance road until 1994, when a portion of this road from North 100 Road to a point approximately 3,800 feet south was officially declared minimum maintenance by the Board of County Commissioners. However, since at least the year 2000 and up until present day, Willow Springs Township has maintained this portion of road as if it were designated full maintenance. Today, the road physically appears to be a full maintenance road and is used by everyday traffic. So the request this evening to rescind the minimum maintenance designation is essentially a corrective action so that the road's designation accurately reflects its current physical state and use. A hearing regarding this road was held at the Willow Springs Township monthly meeting on April 7th. At this meeting, no members of the public voiced any opposition, and the township's request was forwarded and presented to the Board of County Commissioners on May 12th. Again, no opposition was voiced at this public hearing, and the Board of County Commissioners signed a resolution to officially commence the process to rescind the minimum maintenance road designation and forwarded the request to the Planning Commission for its recommendation. Once a recommendation is made by the Planning Commission, this item will go back to the Board of County Commissioners for final consideration. If the Board of County Commissioners decide to approve the township's request, they will sign a final resolution officially rescinding the minimum maintenance designation. And because the road is already maintained as a full maintenance road, if the request is approved, the only physical change to the road will be the removal of any existing minimum maintenance signage along the road. Staff recommends approving the request to rescind the minimum maintenance designation for East 1000 Road between 029 North and North 100 Road in Willow Springs Township and forwarding a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I'll say, we also have Kevin Sontag from the Douglas County Public Works Office with us tonight to also help answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you, Avery. And yes, we do have Kevin Sontag remoting in. I'll turn it over to our applicant.
Kevin Sontag, excuse me. I haven't spoken in a while. Kevin Sontag, Douglas County Land Surveyor. Nothing really to add. Avery summarized the situation very well. It is very much a cleanup issue in the sense that we are just trying to make the road, the way it is actually being used and maintained and traveled, match what the records show it is. And as of right now, they do not match. So this is very much a cleanup issue, and it is as pretty much a slam dunk as we get in situations like this. We have heard no negative comments from any property owners, and the township is very happy to keep the current maintenance going forward, keeping it maintained as a full maintenance road. So very straightforward, and we just thank the commission tonight for hearing the item and giving us your opinion on the matter. Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you very much, both of you. And I'll ask Kyle if there are any members of the public in the chambers or anybody online who would like to speak to this issue.
Kyle Kobe with Planning. There are 0 people here to speak on this item, and at this point, I don't see anybody who wants to speak via Zoom either.
All right, Commissioner Ashworth, so I'll bring it back to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Carter.
David Carter, Commissioner. I'd just like to ask staff a little bit of clarification, just since we don't encounter these situations very often. a little bit of background on what the practical implications of this change would be, especially in terms of finance. From the staff report, my impression is these minimum maintenance designations take place to kind of reflect that very little traffic is expected, and users should expect very little maintenance, as a consequence. But if the township has been expending the resources to maintain the road regardless, does the change in the designation have any consequence, any effect on their ability to finance it, or where the finances actually come from?
Kevin Sontag, County Surveyor. No, it won't change it from a township perspective. They'll be spending the same number of dollars on the road in the future as they have been in the past. They have been treating this just like it was a full maintenance road the whole time. So that will not change. There is one practical difference that may occur in the future, and it is just a may, not definitively. Opening this road up as a full maintenance road, or I shouldn't say open, but declaring this a full maintenance road and not a minimum maintenance road, does allow any property owner who takes access from this road the ability to receive a residential building permit off of this stretch of road. Residential building permits are not allowed on minimum maintenance roads. So if this road were to get an application currently for a residence, it would have to be denied simply because the road was declared minimum maintenance, even though it was being maintained. Making this change would allow somebody to potentially build a residence off of this stretch of road, which of course would give a few more tax dollars to the township, which would assist with the road maintenance. So the township, there are no property owners right now asking for residences off of this stretch. So obviously things might change in the future, but if that does happen, the township does not seem to have any problem with that. It would increase their tax base very slightly. And as I've said, there's been no opposition from anyone else. So I hope that helps.
David Carter, Commissioner, thanks very much. That's very helpful.
Commissioner Ashworth, are there any other commissioners who would like to comment or have a question on this item? We could also entertain a motion if nobody has any further comments. Anyone?
Sure.
Commissioner Rexroad.
Commissioner Rexroad, to move that we approve the request to rescind the minimum maintenance designation MM-21-00002 for East 1000 Road between 029 North, 029 N and North 100 Road in Willow Springs Township, and forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Carter? Any further discussion? No? Can I ask you to call the roll, please, Jeff?
Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth? Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroad?
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashworth. We're on to item number 4. And Avery again, with another minimum maintenance road designation.
Yes, good evening. Again, this is Avery Kerner, planning staff. The second request before you this evening is item MM-21-00003. And this is a request by the Board of Highway Commissioners of the Lecompton Township to establish the minimum maintenance road designation on portions of 3 roads. The 3 portions of roads up for consideration are East 300 Road between North 2150 Road and North 2190 Road, East 400 Road between 2146 North and 2199 North, and then North 2000 Road between 126 East and 175 East. and a map of these roads can be found on page 2 of the staff report provided in your packet this evening. All three portions of road up for consideration were opened over 100 years ago as public full maintenance roads. As far as anyone can recall, all 3 roads were maintained and appeared travelable until around the 1990s. Around that time, all 3 roads stopped receiving regular maintenance as these roads were not used by the general public for travel and no residences took access from these segments. Currently, all 3 roads are in such poor condition that a typical vehicle could not traverse them. Today, the roads are primarily used by the surrounding property owners for recreational purposes. And at this time, the township has no desire to improve these roads and are therefore asking to establish the minimum maintenance road designation to match each road's current physical state and use. A hearing regarding this request was held on April 20th at the Lecompton Township monthly meeting. At this meeting, no members of the public voiced any opposition, and the township's request was forwarded and presented to the Board of County Commissioners on April 28th. Again, no opposition was voiced at this public hearing, and the Board of County Commissioners signed a resolution officially commencing the process to establish the minimum maintenance road designation on the 3 subject portions of roads. This resolution also officially forwarded the request to the Planning Commission for its recommendation. Planning staff has received several calls regarding this request prior to the meeting this evening. All communication has been for clarification on the purpose of this item, and no members of the public have expressed opposition to the request. Once a recommendation is made by the Planning Commission, this item will go back to the Board of County Commissioners for final consideration. If the Board of County Commissioners decide to approve the township's request, they will sign a final resolution officially establishing the minimum maintenance road designations for the 3 subject portions of roads. And because the roads already appear to be and act as minimum maintenance roads, if the request is approved, the only physical changes to the roads will be to add minimum maintenance signage along each segment. Staff recommends approving the request to establish the minimum maintenance road designation for the 3 portions of roads in Lecompton Township and forwarding a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners. Again, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have, and we do have Kevin with us to help answer those questions.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you, Avery. And now I invite Kevin Sontag, Douglas County Surveyor, to comment.
Kevin Sontag, County Surveyor. The only thing that I will just reiterate on these is that the roads are currently full maintenance. They have not been maintained in a very long time. They should have been declared minimum maintenance a number of years ago. Like many things, they fall through the cracks and they just kind of, they never seem to get done until someone makes a push for it. That is what we are currently doing here. Even though these roads are all currently full maintenance, no residences currently take access from these segments of road, therefore making these very prime candidates for the minimum maintenance designation. If there are any property owners who own property along these segments of roads who one day in the future would like to build a residence off of these segments, can ask the township for a reversal, like our previous item, where a road goes from minimum maintenance back to full maintenance. There would be a improvement that would need to be made to the physical road. That may be paid for by the landowner or the township or some combination thereof. But if that ever does come up, that what we are doing for these 3 roads currently is not set in stone forever. Property owners can ask for reversal at some point if they would like. But at this point, it does not make sense to keep these roads the way they are as full maintenance roads. The township has no desire to upgrade them at this point to travelable roads. Calling them minimum maintenance makes the most sense. So once again, thank you to the commissioners for hearing the item tonight. And I'm here to answer any other questions.
Ashworth, thank you. And thank you for commenting on the sort of wider implications of some of these minimum maintenance road designations. I think that's very helpful. Kyle, can I ask if there are any members of the public in the chambers or online that wish to comment?
Kyle Covey with planning. There's nobody in the room to comment on this item. And I don't see any hands going up on Zoom either.
All right, then I'll bring it back to the commission for questions and comment. Commissioner Carter.
David Carter, Commissioner, I guess this is a question for Mr. Sontag about these gates at the ends of these road segments. It seems like an odd occurrence that these gates were constructed without authorization or permitting on public roads at some point after maintenance just kind of stopped. I mean, that doesn't seem like something that just happens. Is this I guess I have two questions. One, is this a common occurrence? And second, assuming all of this gets approved, what would be your expectation? I noticed that the staff report says that, a study would be engaged for the proper placement of the gates. Would these likely be moved? What's your understanding of that?
I will say that gates going across open public roads is a rare occurrence, but these are not the only 3 cases in the county. There have been others. It is very easy for a property owner to have a road that no one seems to use much anymore to put gates on the end of it to try to just keep you could call it the riffraff out, people that they don't want tearing up the roads with ATVs or dumping trash out in the middle of their property through using this open public roadway. So it doesn't happen very, very much, but when it does happen, it is on situations like this where the roads have fallen into disrepair and a property owner kind of takes it upon themselves without realizing that there are statutory requirements for installing a gate across an open public roadway. So that is something that we will be working with the township at the end of this minimum maintenance process to try to legalize the gates that are there or legalize a placement of a gate in a slightly different location to keep the general public off of what would be then minimum maintenance roads. The one gate location of these 3 roads, we have 6 gates, one on each end of the 3 roads. The one gate that will more than likely move would be at the north end of E400. The current gate is very close to the existing residential entrance that is on the north side of E400 road. The township would like that gate to be pushed south approximately 50 to 60 feet. The township would like to improve that small little stub so that they will have basically a T-shape between the road segments and the driveway to that residence for turning around large vehicles, fire trucks, graders, things of that nature, large vehicles that need kind of a hammerhead shaped turnaround. Currently, once they get to the west end of the travelable section of E400, they have to back down the road because they don't have a turnaround. So that gate location will more than likely move. And you can actually see that in the legal description for the E400 road asking to be minimum maintenance. It does go south 60 feet from the east-west segment so that they can have a stretch of open full maintenance road that they can put some gravel down, improve, and allow a big vehicle to turn around. And then that's where the minimum maintenance segment would start going south. And that is also where they hope the legal gate will be placed once we get through the gate process. So have I answered your questions satisfactorily?
Very, very, very much so. Thank you very much, David.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Hi, Tonya Voigt. I just have a really quick question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Kevin, if there are pedestrians out in the county, say there are neighbors like in close proximity, and they want to be able to go past the gate and walk down the road, did he have the ability to do that with the gate there?
Technically, it would still be an open public road. So if they wanted to climb the gate, I do believe they would be in their legal right to do so. Most of the gates that you would see put up are ones that someone could step over, a typical agricultural gate that they could climb over. They would be there to stop vehicles, ATVs, and such from going down. But because it is still an open public road that's just not being maintained, since it's open and public, the public could still technically use it. I don't think there's anything restricting them from climbing the gate as long as they stay within the road right of way. If they left the road right of way and went onto if they left the public roadway and left the right of way onto private property to get around the gate, that is when they would be trespassing.
Thank you.
There will be, as part of the gate process, there will be a sign posted on the gates that have phone numbers to the proper entities that have keys to any locks that would be put on the gate. So if someone did have a actual reason to be there, like if they lived, if they had a farm ground past the gate, if they didn't already have a key, which they probably will, but if they actually have a valid reason to go down there, there will be phone numbers for the township or the sheriff, possibly the public works department, that they could contact to get access through the gate. So if someone had a valid reason, they would be able to get through it.
Commissioner Thomas.
Charlie Thomas, Commissioner. Essentially, the gate says this is not public property. That is the message that's given, even though the reality is that it is public property. I have seen several other minimum maintenance roads with no gate. What is the reasoning? And I was concerned about your use of the word riffraff. But the reason for that gate, since it is public property?
The reason for the gate is simply to only allow people who have a valid reason to cross the gate, to allow them to do that. People who own property behind the gate, someone who, a renter or a farmer who's leasing the ground or farming the ground. So it stops a general person who doesn't have a valid reason from getting through it. But it does, the gate itself might kind of scream, this is a closed road, but the signage does not say, road has been vacated or something that is clearly defining this as a closed road, because the road does technically remain open and is public. It just keeps the only people from using the road behind the gate to the ones that have a valid reason. Does that help?
Commissioner Thomas, no. Out of all of the minimum maintenance roads in Douglas County, how many would you say are gated?
I don't have a number for you, but I would say that it is well less than 50% of them. Most minimum maintenance roads are not gated. Usually gates arise because they are having some sort of active problem. For instance, we are actually going through a gate process currently for a road in Kanawha Township. And the only reason it came up was because they had people driving up and down a minimum maintenance road with ATVs, and they were causing big ruts in the roadway, causing damage to the roadway that wasn't maintained very well to begin with, but was still allowing access to farmers and the people who actually own ground there. The people who were causing the damage were not property owners along this road. So usually the gates, the conversation started about them because of a very specific reason. They usually do not come automatically with minimum maintenance roads. Like I said, I don't have a good number for you, but if I had to guess, I would say we probably have less than 24 legal gates approved by county resolution in the entire county.
Charlie Thomas, Commissioner again. How long have these gates been there again? Was it 10 years?
Kevin Sontag, County Surveyor. I don't know the amount of time that's been there, simply because it's not like the gates were put up by the township. They were just kind of put up by property owners at some point. In fact, the township may not have even known about it for a while after they were installed. So they have been up for a very significant amount of time, and no one has made any complaints about it. And that's one of the reasons that they usually stay, even though they're not technically legal, because they haven't been approved by the county commission. If there's been no complaints, it's usually just a sleeping dog that gets to be left alone.
Commissioner Thomas, again, Kevin, I appreciate your willingness to answer as best you can.
Absolutely.
About the road. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Commissioner Ashworth, I'm going to let the commissioners chew on this, but I do want to know that I will get to, we do have a neighbor that will have a comment shortly, but I'll let the commissioners finish chewing this over first. Commissioner Shanklin?
Greg Shanklin, Planning Commission. Just to follow on this subject, it appears to me that we have an open and dedicated public roadway and a legal right-of-way possessed by the county, but for no apparent reason. Why does the county want to continue the right-of-way and not just abandon it to the adjoining property owners?
Right-of-way is a very precious commodity. You never know when there might be a good reason that you will need it. It could be that in 40, 50, 60 years, perhaps development has changed in a way where it would be beneficial to open up one of these segments of road. For instance, we'll say E400 road. If you needed to get from County Route 1029, which is N2100 road, up to the what's called the Scenic River Road, E2190 road, you do have to go at least a mile in each direction to get from one road to the other if you're on E400 road to begin with. You'd have to go, I believe, east a mile or west much more than a mile. It could be that development changes and you want to have that road reopened so that there's another way of getting from one road to the other, and having that right of way already there that can then just be improved without having to buy the right of way back from the property owners is a great asset. Right of way is not only expensive, but there are a lot of times where property owners are not willing to give it up. So once you have right of way, you need a really good reason to give it up. If you can just declare it a minimum maintenance road and still hold on to it, the minimum maintenance designation does absolve the township from any type of liability from traveling public, traveling along the road. They no longer have to maintain that road. It is basically something they can just keep in their back pocket. Plus it does give access to the property owners to get from one end to the other. For instance, on E300 road, one of the property owners owns property on the south end of E300 road and the north end of E300 road, but doesn't own the land in between. And he actually does use E300 road to get from one to the other on an all-terrain vehicle to get from one farm ground to the other. That particular property owner has a very good reason that he wants that public road still open, even if it's not being maintained. So I think the best way to summarize it is that right-of-way is precious. We've already got it. There is no real good reason to give it up at this point, as long as we have this minimum maintenance designation available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ashworth, are there any other commissioners that have a comment at this time? If not, I would like to give Mr. Nigel Locke an opportunity to speak on this issue, who is a neighbor to this property. You have 3 minutes, please, sir.
Great, thank you. First question, I had two quick questions. So the first one, once a road maintenance, if I were to desire to access for a development of a house on the road that's minimum maintenance, that process, which I just witnessed in the earlier item, to reverse that and bring that back to regular road. Obviously, there's a question of bringing the road up to code, which is my second question. But the actual process to go from minimum back to a regular road has to come through here with this process. But is that something that can be objected to by a neighbor, given that the right of way was there, it was a road? Or is this more a question of just need to bring a road back up to code, if you like?
Commissioner Ashworth, is that basically your comments to ask that question? Because I can pitch that to Kevin Sontag.
Yes, I wasn't sure who.
Okay, thank you very much. Kevin Sontag, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes, I can. Mr. Locke, it is the same process to go from full to minimum as it is minimum to full maintenance. There are three meetings that the public does have a opportunity to object. That would be a township meeting, the planning commission meeting, and the Board of County Commissioner meeting. They do have, the public does have a chance to come and object to it. And then the Township Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners can, of course, take that under advisement. So yes, it will go through the same process as we're kind of going through now. That is correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you. We've learned quite a lot about minimum maintenance designation this evening. So that's actually all been helpful. Is there any other comments, particularly picking up from Mr. Locke's comments that the commissioners have?
Can I state my second question? Do I have
Oh,
time?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had a second question.
So with regard to bringing a piece of road up that is in disrepair, unpassable right now, you mentioned, Kevin, the cost on that falling on the landowner or the township. What governs where that cost falls?
There is a state statute, and I apologize for not being able to cite it at the moment. There is a state statute that says if a road has not been maintained for a certain number of years, that the cost of the improvements to the road does fall on the landowner. Now, that doesn't mean that the township can't jump in if they feel like they want to be a part of the process. A township would have every right to come in and say, you know what, we want this road to be full maintenance. This will improve the road network. We will actually just pay for it all. Or it could be that they say, well, we'll pay half and you pay half. It will be completely up to the negotiation between the property owner asking for the improvement and the township. It is, I'm seeing if I can find the statute real quick here, but it is, like I said, it is statutory that, here it is. It looks like it's Kansas statute 68-115. And that kind of lays out, and it looks like it's a 20-year time frame, which we are past that because it does look like it hasn't been maintained since the 1990s. So 68-115 does lay that out. If that is something you do wish to do in the future, the first thing that I would suggest is to talk with the township and see what their thoughts are on it. And go from there. I do want to also add that the cost of the upgrading of the road may fall on the landowner, but by the statute, once the road is improved and acceptable, the township says that, yes, we have improved this road to the point where we are comfortable with it being used for the general public traveling it. Then the cost of the maintenance into the future does fall on the township. That is where the cost of the to the property owner does end. So once it is reopened as a full maintenance road and improved and accepted, then the township takes over the maintenance and the cost of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, thank you very much. I'm going to bring this back to the commission. Any last questions, comments, or motions, please? Commissioner Carpenter.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. I just have to say this is making my head spin. I mean, this is worse than sidewalks. We're essentially turning public road into private roads, accessible only by key holders until they've been there long enough, and then we put all the burden on bringing the road back up if the township and county commission decide we want it again. The burden of bringing that road back up to minimum standards is on adjacent property owners. Like we have, adjacent property owners have to maintain sidewalks, and then the county takes it over again, and I suppose you get rid of the gates. But I mean, this is just, and I understand that you want to hold on to the land. So it almost seems that you got a calculation the county hopes that it sits unused for 20 years in the event that we want it, down that later on, and put the burden on property owners for a public road. So I'm just saying every comment that's come out has just added more layers to trying to understand this. And I have to say, this is the most in-depth we've gone into minimum maintenance roads and ever. And now I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about it for a while. So thanks a lot. I really don't have any objection to this. I'm just pointing out that this is just absurd. And I imagine some of these statutes are pretty old that have never been revisited or updated. So there's probably an interesting history here we haven't actually heard to.
Kevin Sontag, County Surveyor. This is definitely the most questions I've ever had at a commission meeting regarding minimum maintenance roads. So it's usually a lot more straightforward than this, and I'm glad to share knowledge. It's always a good thing to educate others. Just to talk about the statutes, the statute that I cited earlier, the 68-115, that talks about the cost of the improvement going to the property owner asking for it. It does date back to 1911, so it is an oldie. It has been around for a very long time. I will say that the more that we do these kind of cleanup issues to make the roads match, the status of the road match how they're actually being maintained, the more that we do these, the fewer and fewer we will ever have to do them again. There will be more. There are other roads that fall under this category where they are full maintenance but not being maintained. And there are other roads, very few at this point, but still a few, that are minimum maintenance but actually being maintained simply because like in this particular case, when the roads fell into disrepair, they didn't do what they were supposed to do, which was called the minimum maintenance at the time. And we're paying the price for that laziness now by having to fix it and answer all these questions. So if roads, once we get all of these current situations cleaned up, if a road ever did need to be changed from a full maintenance to a minimum maintenance, it would be because the township wanted to currently stop maintaining a road and not because they did it 20 years ago. So once all this cleanup is done, the situations will be a lot more straightforward. We're just, when, you can't clean up if there hasn't been a mess already out there for you. So it's messy, but we're doing our best.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission, you're looking for the statute, 68-126, and specifically about fences across public highways. So and that, again, 1911. And I'll just note sidewalks are 1908. So these things were pretty concurrent when the ideas came out in a state legislature. And it's probably follows national trends, but these are ripe for revisiting at some time. But thanks for the education tonight.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Ashworth, I believe Kevin Sontag has just probably invited himself to a mid-month education session or study session.
Cheap hourly rates.
So I'm sure we will hear more about that since it's such a juicy topic. So, but for the issue at hand, Commissioner Thomas.
Commissioner Thomas, one last thing, Kevin. And this may be beating a dead horse. And I apologize for not going out and looking at these particular minimum maintenance roads. I was thinking not far from Commissioner Gregg's house, there are a couple of minimum maintenance roads that I have gone down hunting morel mushrooms. And I'm thinking, had a gate been put across one particular road, that would have said to me, Charlie Thomas, you may not go there unless you call the sheriff, unless you call the township. And that concerns me that we have let private individuals make the decision to close down a public road by putting their gate across this road. Are we, in essence, giving permission, and I could name names close to Commissioner Shanklin, are we giving permission to these individuals to throw up a gate and say, Charlie, do not go hunting for morels. That is my private property.
Well, let me clarify. Kevin Sontag, County Surveyor. Let me see if I can clarify a little bit of that. Number one, the gates are not approved for the property owners to place the gates. They are there for the township to place the gates. So the gates are maintained by the township after that, and they are not privately owned by a property owner. The gates are also approved by resolution. You mentioned the statute there, 68, I think it's -126. So there is a public process to the approving of the gates. So they get approved by the Board of County Commission, which means the public does technically have a chance to voice opposition to it if they feel like they don't want the gates there. We do send out letters to any of the property owners that are along the road that will be gated off. We don't send them out to anyone else because at what point do you stop? So there are some owners notified by mail, but I do believe we place a notice in the public paper to the general public saying that there will be a hearing and a resolution talking about a gate at an upcoming commission meeting. So the public does have a chance to chime in if they so want to. So it is an open public process, and I think you're right. It does kind of give the impression that it isn't public. It's only, you know, a technicality that it does that. It doesn't openly do that. It's just kind of gives the impression. But by the letter of the law and the letter of the statutes, it's you know, still remaining an open public road.
Commissioner Thomas, again, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your wading into this quicksand, this morass on low maintenance roads.
You're very welcome. And technically, we weren't even supposed to talk about gates tonight. It was just supposed to be minimum maintenance. They're technically separate issues, but happy to do it. They're very tied in together. The Public Works department very greatly feels that you shouldn't have gates without a minimum maintenance road. So they are kind of tied together in that route. But there are minimum maintenance roads that don't have gates, so they're kind of tied one way but not the other. But yeah, like I said, I'm always happy to share information. So.
Great.
Kevin, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ashworth, thank you. And on that, I will try to steer this back to the issue at hand, the minimum maintenance designation. So gates aside, for a future meeting or something someday, any further commentary, questions, or motions with regard to the item before us? Commissioner Carter.
Madam Vice Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion of David Carter, Commissioner, if the time is right, and I think maybe it is. I would move that we approve the request to establish the minimum maintenance road designation MM-21-00003 for 3 roads in Lecompton Township: East 300 Road between North 2150 Road and North 2190 Road, East 400 Road between 2146N and 2199N, and North 2000 Road between 126E and 175E, and forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Carpenter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Jeff, can I ask for a roll call, please?
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth,
Yes?
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroad,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, Commissioner Ashworth, thank you. And thank you for the contribution from the public. That was very educational for everybody. So before we turn to our final item tonight, which is the study session, update on county zoning regulations and rural land use, I'd like to propose just a quick break. Just a few minutes. What time is it? 8:08. And, quick 5-minute break. Is that long? Can I just do that and then we just break? Okay, good. All right.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Ashworth, room is ready when you are.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Ashworth. Welcome back to our Planning Commission meeting Monday, July 26th. We are on to our study session now that will be led by Tonya Voigt, Douglas County Zoning Director, for a discussion on the update on county zoning regulations and rural land use. Take it away, Tonya.
Hi, everyone. Tonya Voigt, Zoning Director. So tonight we're going to try to break this into two separate parts. Back in the early part of 2021, we met with the Board of County Commissioners to kind of give them an update on the permits that our office processes and kind of where we are with those permits. And so we're going to give just a little bit of information because these are permits that you guys approve, which are conditional use permits, site plans, those type of things, and kind of let you know what we're currently working on and kind of where we are in that process. And then after that, we provided, I think, hopefully you had some time to look at it over the weekend, some rural parcel data, some inventory data that we'll run through fairly quickly. So hopefully it'll be a little bit of a quick night for you guys compared to ones you've been in recently, but we're just excited to share. And Ben's going to give, he's our code enforcement officer, and he's going to give a breakdown at the beginning here.
Good evening, commissioners. I don't know if I can follow up the minimum maintenance conversation, but I'll do my best. I've got a little presentation that I'm going to try to share that might make it a little bit more entertaining. Let me know when it's on. Can you all see that? So enterprise in Douglas County is broken into 4 categories, and tonight we're going to review those 4 primary categories. So the first category is home-based businesses. We have type 1 and type 2 home business permits that serve the small and growing businesses in the county. These permits enable the county to administratively set standards and guidance for small-scale ventures. This model funnels directly into conditional use permits as they grow over time. So conditional use permits, as I'm sure most of you are very well aware of, are CUPs for short, and they are permits that require discretionary approval from the county. CUPs consent to a use not allowed by right in a particular zone. The permit application is approved under a set of conditions determined through a transparent and public process. And then we have site plans that allow Douglas County to set conditions on a property and ensure the proposed development meets zoning standards for the district it's located in. Site plans are a scaled drawing that show the structures, proposed uses, landscaping, septic, parking, lighting. Requirements are also documented on the site plan. And then we have agritourism, and we believe that agritourism is the intersection of agriculture and tourism, when the public visits rural areas for recreation, education, enjoyment, entertainment, adventure, or relaxation. So we're going to dive a little deeper into home businesses. So we currently have 133 permitted home-based businesses in the unincorporated portion of Douglas County. First of all, we have the type 1 home businesses, which are low impact with 2 or fewer non-resident employees. They are based out of the residence. Douglas County currently has 67 permitted type 1 home businesses. Type 2 home businesses operate out of an accessory building with 4 or fewer non-resident employees. Type 2 create a greater impact on the neighborhood and generally have more conditions to operate. We have 66 permitted type 2 home occupations currently. In addition to that, we have 83 unpermitted home businesses that we know of that are operating in the county. And we're gradually addressing those, but that takes time. We did about 15 in the last 6 months, and each one of those can create a lot of time. One of them has already gone through a CUP process, and more are coming down the line. So if we were to bring all 83, send them all letters at once, it would be an unmanageable volume for the Planning Commission, the planners, our staff, and Board of County Commissioners. As the business becomes too large or is proposed at too large of a size, then we have the conditional use permit. Conditional use permits serve larger scale and higher impact operations. The permit process establishes conditions to minimize impact of the operation on the surrounding area. As we discussed tonight, a lot of the conditions typically revolve around dust palliative, road repair, lighting, signage compliance, site plan compliance, building code compliance, renewals, parking, screening, drainage, state permits and licenses, hours of operation, and noise. And a lot of these, when we're looking at them from a code enforcement perspective, we're thinking about, a year down the line, 2 years, 5 years, and trying to forecast what that impact is going to be for the neighbors. Managing the approved CUP conditions, closing expired CUPs, and resolving known violations is a high priority. I'm going to jump back up to the graph. So we currently have 375 CUPs on our list. That list has not been cleaned up in a really long time. Around 185 of those are active. We know that at least 120 are expired. And out of that list, 27 are known violations of the CUP, and 43 are duplicates where a new CUP replaced the old one. So working through that list is a high priority. However, zoning and codes is not currently staffed to manage the workload that cleanup initiative will create. Then we have site plans, and site plans come along when the property is already zoned for that use, such as a general industrial or a business use, a general business. Site plans allow Douglas County to set conditions on a property and ensure the proposed development meets zoning standards for the district it is located in. We have 261 documented site plans. 143 of those are before 2009, and they are not on a very good list at this point. Site plans prior to 2009 will require more extensive research and review to complete our database. All site plans will require a detailed review to ensure that the uses match what is site planned. This review is a goal of the zoning and code staff and will require coordination with Lawrence PDS. This review would likely lead to an unmanageable level of planning work updating site plans. And then lastly, we have agritourism. Agritourism enables the residents of Douglas County and the state of Kansas to connect in a personal way with the land and the farmers who protect Douglas County's most cherished and valued asset. We're proud to have 13 registered agritourism operations in Douglas County and hope to register many more in the coming years. Douglas County GIS has created a story map to help the public easily find them. Typical operations include U-Pick operations, farm stays, nursery tours, horseback riding, pumpkin patches. I'd like to click here and just show you our website real quick. Can you all see that? So this is our website that introduces the public to our approved agritourism sites. And as you scroll down, you can see the map of the county, and you can click on a certain location that's close to you and figure out where you'd like to visit that weekend. We have Big Spring Berries. You can click the website and you can learn more about them. And it's a way that we can help feature agritourism operations in our county and try to attract more people to their business. So what comes next? Douglas County Zoning and Codes was recently approved for a planner position to assist with planning review and open space initiatives. The new planner will also assist with evaluating CUP and site plan compliance. As we work through the cleanup process, the Planning Commission will see an increase in conditional use permits, site plans, and some type 2 home businesses. Unpermitted home businesses will continue to be addressed gradually in groups by business type. We would welcome any of your feedback and questions as we work to manage more than 800 varied business operations in unincorporated Douglas County. That's the end of our first part.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashworth. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We're turning
I
it
can
back over to
stop sharing.
Tonya, I believe, right?
Would it be appropriate to go ahead and dive in and then we can just answer questions at the end? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see the screen? Yep, great. So I'm Tonya Voigt, the zoning director for Douglas County. I hope everyone had some time over the weekend to look over the data we provided on rural parcels. We've spent some time just kind of absorbing the numbers and trying to understand what they mean. During the zoning regulation update, we had several requests to prepare county parcel inventory. GIS was able to provide some current data for us, and that will help us utilize the information as a baseline moving forward and to grasp a better understanding of where Douglas County stands in relationship to development. We're excited to be able to continue to study this information and use it as a tool when making future land use decisions. With AG1 zoning and AG2 zoning, under the current zoning regulations, we are better able to track parcel data. It does make it much easier for us. Prior to that, almost the entire county was zoned agriculture, other than general business and industrial zoning. Farmland preservation is a comprehensive plan goal that we've worked to implement to sustain Douglas County's agricultural industry. One of the big picture questions we ask ourselves daily is sustaining enough, and is there room or a way to expand Douglas County's agricultural industry? Is that, or should it be, a goal? And is 20-acre agricultural residential density enough? We know the importance of protecting high quality agricultural soils for future production, but we have not completely restricted development in these areas. Local farmers understand that growth increases land values, but development congests rural roads, causes subdivisions to sprout on edges of fields, often creating leasing and farm entrance issues, and produces enough general clamor to impede farmers' ability to efficiently participate in a county farm economy. According to the USDA 2017 Census of Agriculture, Douglas County had 998 farms, accounting for 230,000 acres and about $66 million in crop and livestock sales in 2017. We will be able to compare this to the new census data soon, and we're afraid that those numbers have probably gone down significantly. We provided some basic rural parcel data during the zoning regulation process. If any of you were at the zoning regulation meetings, you would have seen this table. It was really helpful to kind of wrap our head around how many rural parcels we have in the county and how big they are. This was the first start of like trying to determine really what agricultural zoning means to us and what type of density we really wanted to focus on. And you know, I think you guys have seen this table too, but I think it's good to provide background for new members. Previous to the new zoning regulations, land splits were done administratively because all of the residential lots had the same zoning, agriculture, which meant that a 1 acre, 3 acre, 5 acre, or 160 acre lot was all zoned the same. Because of that, when a property started dividing land, it was administratively approved with no notification to neighboring landowners and little opportunity to control the number of lots created and look at things for the highest and best use of the land. With added zoning districts and a rezone process for properties dividing smaller than AG1, neighbor notification, public hearings, and county commission are now involved, which is a huge step forward. So just an example, when we go back, we could see, we put a moratorium on certificates of survey. I know most people here remember that. That was kind of just because the numbers just kept increasing, and then we had a really shocking jump of land splits in the county. We had 60 certificates of survey in 2018, and that sparked bringing that data forward, and ultimately a moratorium for 7 months or so while we worked on the zoning regulations. I think it's important when we look, like in 2018, at the number of certificates of survey, it says 60, but that doesn't tell us how many buildable lots that created. So we know there were 60 surveys, but how many lots were in each of those surveys? And so when you look at this one, I do believe it was too big to put in one certificate of survey. It may have taken 2 or 3. But when you think about that, out of those 60, this was 1, and this was, 1 or 2, and it was 26 lots or 25 lots. And actually see the number added up here, but some of them were rather large and created a lot of residential building lots. And then we also discussed the moratorium was on cluster developments and rural certificates of survey, because our rural certificates of survey were happening at such a rapid pace and land was being split so quickly and at such a high density that they began to look like subdivisions, even though really in the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations, we were saying we were prohibiting subdivisions, that they weren't allowed. But when you look at this map, it looks very similar to a subdivision. So what we did with the new zoning regulations is we essentially kind of eliminated a lot of that certificate of survey and rural certificate of survey pressure because we created the AG1 zoning district. But I think it's important to note that more parcels are being created through the survey process than are built on annually. So we can't just base it on building permit numbers because the land is splitting at a greater rate than what people are pulling building permits. So we can assume if it's buildable and it's gone through the survey process, it will be built on eventually. So while certificates of survey and cluster developments are on the decline, rural agricultural subdivision surveys, which are 20 acres or greater, those are on the rise by quite a lot. This year will be around 90 to 100 land splits, creating 90 to 100 buildable lots this year. We're currently right now, I think, at about 50. We have 25 recorded and 24 pending that are still going through the process. We're halfway through the year, so we're just estimating. Last year in 2020, the regulations were adopted in February, but the moratorium wasn't lifted until I think April. And so we had 60 buildable lots created in 2020, but then keep in mind that we had a moratorium on that part of the year. So we're just kind of trying to take this data, absorb it, and figure out what it means, to the county and to us. When you look at the picture of the certificate of survey here, this is an example of an ag boundary survey, and it's just a snippet of a portion of it without all the other language. This is kind of what we expected. So here's a 50-acre parcel created and a 30 and another 30. Oh, and another thing that I think is really important to note is that the number of rural parcels, they do not reflect the surveys if new deeds have not been filed. So when we go online and we're looking at a parcel, if a new deed has not been filed, and we don't have any, if we're unable to trigger or know that a certificate of survey had been filed there, if no deed has been filed in GIS, it's still showing as a large parcel. So you could have 160 acres that has been split up, but deeds have not started being recorded yet. And so we don't actually count those numbers as splits or as buildable lots because the new deeds haven't been filed yet. And that's been just kind of a problem. We've just, we have parcel data now, but it doesn't mean that it's perfect data because we run into them quite often where we'll pull up a parcel, find an old survey, a deed hadn't been filed, but the land split was done legally at the time it was split. And so they just need to file the deed. And then once that deed's filed, then it shows up in our GIS program so we can see the land split. So while this information is not perfect, it does help guide us and it helps give us some ideas. But there are many surveys out there that we are not seeing because deeds have not been filed. Oh, and another note on So when we think about the 2018 60 certificates of survey were created, because all those lots have not started, not all of them have started selling, those haven't all started changing hands and new deeds haven't been filed. It makes it really kind of difficult to figure out like how many lots that actually created, how many buildable lots. So what we would need to do is go to the Register of Deeds site, somehow do some type of search, pull up all of the certificates of survey that were filed that year, and then just individually count all the RDPs. And we do intend to do that, and we would like to have kind of some more information about the number of parcels created, but we have not done that yet. Because we had parcel data during the zoning regulations, we kind of knew we had parcel data from 2004, 2009, so every 5 years, 2014, and then we were able to do 2020 and 2021 just on our own. So we do know that kind of the number of parcels being created are on the up. We were averaging around 30 and then 40 and then 60, and now we're, you know, upwards of 90 now annually. And I think you guys will see when we were just trying to kind of interpret the data, figure out what that means to us, with approximately 50,000 acres in the floodplain and the floodway. When you run the calculations on all of the land that's vacant, that's AG1 land that has not been built on, and you subtract out the floodplain and the floodway, we would be 100% parceled out in 50 years, which means that we would be maxed unless rezone started taking place or we allowed people to build on smaller density. So that may require a regulation change, allowing 10-acre lots, and then people could continue to divide, but we will be completely maxed out in 50 years. And then when we assume the floodplain constraints, which is that 50,000 acres, that actually gets reduced to 28 years. So with the floodplain and the floodway, we are down to 28 years left of inventory in Douglas County. And that would be dividing at AG1 zoning requirements. So 1 residence per 20 acres. Something that we didn't anticipate, but that we are seeing are agricultural boundary surveys that are a little bit concerning on our part, but we understand we've taken really good steps. We just want the public and the Planning Commission, the Board of County Commission to be aware. So this is an example, and we have several, of 160 acres that was divided into 20-acre lots. Almost all of it, which all the hash dotted areas, prime soil. So almost all of it is prime soil, and there's some wetlands on it as well. But that was something that maybe we didn't quite anticipate. I think we more so assumed that if someone wanted to build a house, they'd carve 20 acres out of a larger parcel to build a house, but we didn't necessarily anticipate that an entire section of ground would be converted to 20-acre lots. So 63% of rural parcels in the county have been built on. 37% are vacant. This has resulted in some loss of commercial large-scale farming, some loss of contiguous large lot agricultural production, and it's kind of forced the transition of Douglas County into more small-scale specialty growing to continue agricultural uses in the community. On our AG2 zoning, 67% of the county parcels are under 20 acres and are zoned AG2. We currently have 4,031 and 4,341 parcels that are built on, and that makes up about 21% of Douglas County. Currently 1,763 vacant AG2 zoned parcels are not built upon. So we do have a decent inventory of AG2 zoned parcels that are vacant. Now, the thing that we don't know about those is we haven't done all the research. So we haven't pulled up all the AG2 zoned parcels and then broke that down even further to subtract ones that are landlocked or ones that are completely inundated in floodplain that can't be buildable, or, you know, any of those type of land constraints. We just know kind of that rough number. We don't know how many of those are buildable or not buildable. I guess the question that we, we wanted to try to figure out during this process is, do we have enough and do we need more? And I don't know that we have an answer, but it is nice to see the numbers. So this is just an example of kind of where we are with building permits. We're staying relatively steady. I just pulled the last few years just as a trend. So we're, averaging between 70 and 80 building permits a year, and that's just residences. So that doesn't include accessory buildings or any of that other stuff. But when we wanted to try to think or compare it to a county that has similar kind of urban sprawl pressure, that is maybe also a college town, just something that we could compare to that's somewhat like. Now, Riley, the city of Manhattan is smaller than Lawrence, but we pulled Riley County's building permits because we were curious, because Riley County does have a huge leap forward in agricultural preservation within their zoning regulations. And in their situation, in 2018, they had 27 residential building permits. In 2019, 14 residential building permits, and in 2020, 16 residential building permits. So I just think it's worth pointing out, zoning does control density, and it's up, to the community to decide, what the community's goals are, and the zoning's there to then drive those goals. And I'm not here to say whether we are meeting our goals or not. I have personal opinions, but I'll keep those aside. I think just looking at the data is just really important for everyone, especially when making land use decisions. So some of the things that we really think about a lot, because we see these land splits, and we talk to farmers, and we talk to developers, and we talk to people wanting to build a house or people wanting to divide land, is how do we manage that kind of residential development pressure with this farmland preservation? And how do we preserve really a critical mass of farms that keep us sustained as a community? And how do we preserve farmland in large contiguous blocks so that we don't have all this conflicting development? How do we create a source of funding for investment in farming? How do we create a source of funding for land development rights? If a farmer wants to develop into 20-acre lots, is there something out there that will help provide funding to pay them the development difference to keep that from being developed? How do we maintain affordable land prices for new farmers to enter farming and for existing farmers to expand their operations? How do we maintain the scenic amenities that farmland provides? And how do we manage community growth and development in a carefully planned and proactive way? We battle these around in our head all the time, trying to think about how to be better, how to suggest things, how to help guide. But it's a difficult topic. So we just kind of wanted to just kind of break some numbers down for you, kind of let you know how we were interpreting the numbers, and then we're just happy to be here and happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner, so thank you very much, Tonya and Ben. That's a lot to digest, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. So who would like to get this started? See lots of pensive, thoughtful faces. Yes, Commissioner Rexroad.
Sure. I had one question. This is Commissioner Rexroad. I had one question from the first part of the presentation talking about the number of home-based businesses that were in various states of non-compliance. I understand that you have a process working through that. Is there some sort of, I guess, two questions. One, is there a timeline in mind by which time all of those will have been worked through? And the second question is, what is staff doing to help these businesses that may have grown into non-compliance or for some reason found themselves there? How are they helping them to get to a state, get to a yes, get to a place where they're able to continue doing business?
So it's kind of a gradual process, especially when it's one that has not been reached out to before, because the home-based business regulations were approved in 2000, and a lot of businesses that we come across just simply didn't know. So we approached them with a pretty general letter, just letting them know about the regulations and some of the steps and that they might need to take. And if it's too big, then we have a process for them to move into the CUP path. We try to approach it as kindly as we can, assuming positive intent. But it takes a lot of follow-up back and forth with the landowner, and we don't want it to get to a point where it's a push and shove, where it becomes something where we have to bring legal in. We want to maintain a positive relationship with them as long as we can. Does that answer your question?
It does. On the position you have with the landowner, Commissioner Rexroth again, is there a timeline you're thinking about from now till some date where you anticipate having cleared this list?
A year ago in May, when we presented to the Board of County Commissioners, I had hoped that it would be a year, but it takes a lot of time, especially with our small staff of 3. And we've been exceptionally busy with COVID and the amount of land use questions that come in. And our team also takes all of those, and floodplain, et cetera. That list also in May of 2020 was 60. So as time goes, we've moved 13 off of the list, and we've added 23. So it's growing as we're identifying them and trying to catch up with, 20 years of not trying to capture them all right away.
I was wondering if some of the pressures of COVID had caused some additional home-based businesses to spring up just out of necessity.
It has as well, and we've also approved more that have reached out to us to find out what they needed to do.
Good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any Commissioner Ashworth, other commissioner comments on this? Commissioner Carter.
Wow, you read my mind. I don't have to even raise my hand. Yeah, David Carter, Commissioner. I'm not sure if this is this may be a dumb question. I'm kind of inundated with this information from both Ben and Tonya, but I guess I would just like to ask, I guess especially Tonya, based on the information you've presented here, what are your principal goals over the next 1 to 2 years? I'm trying to like I said, what principal messages would you like us to take from this information you presented to us? Yeah, I'm sorry for the dumb question, but and I don't think I did. I'm not sure if this was information that I did see over the weekend. I'm pretty sure I just saw it today. So I did not have the opportunity to review it before this meeting. And so it's just a lot to and I want to hold on to this, and not having been able to have the chance to look at it in advance, I want to go back and really take what you've presented to us and really extract the most useful information that I can from it. And again, sorry, it's kind of a dumb comment / question.
No, not at all. I think, we did the same. So we sat on this information for a couple weeks. I think Karen Willie had made a request for it. We weren't quite ready to provide it because it takes a lot of just trying to absorb the data, run the numbers, and just kind of extrapolate, what that means to you and really what that means to the community and the county as a whole. And so we know there probably will be additional interpretations and other points that maybe we're not even thinking of. It is really complex data that a long-term planner would love. But long-term planners also have the ability to focus on something long range like this. And we are so inundated in the day-to-day that it makes it challenging for us to be able to spend large amounts of time on the big picture. But it's so important to us that we force it and we make it happen, because at the end of the day, this long range stuff is what truly matters. And so we just are making it happen by will or something, just because we care. And so I think goals for us would be using the Ag Sub information to continue to gather information about, continued land splits, because we really only have about a year and a half worth of data. And I don't know if that's enough. I mean, we're making some assumptions, but maybe in 2023, we won't have as many land splits. And so I think we just want to use it as a base and then keep forging forward with the information and making the best decisions. So that's all we're really asking out of the data component of it. As for kind of code enforcement, conditional use permits, site plans, I think what we really truly kind of wanted at the end of the day was a connection, because your board makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and that there's a lot of pressure for development out in the county, whether that's housing development or commercial development, business development, industrial development, it's all there. And so we have a hard time and have always been not staffed probably well enough to keep hold of it and keep up with it. So when conditions are set and reviews are set, we really struggle with that, because Ben has been here 2 years now, but he's our first code enforcement officer who's even been able to, compile this data, put it into a tool that then we can use. So I think just getting all of our spreadsheets cleaned up, knowing exactly where we are, will be the first step with code enforcement, and then starting the process. And I think really, again, because we're small, the planner position will certainly help with going through conditional use permit site plans. That'll give Ben more time to work on home-based businesses and other code enforcement that just comes in daily, complaints from neighbors and those type of things. And so with that kind of added position, I really believe that we'll be able to at least get to a point that we have clear boundaries. We'll be bringing, conditional use permits back by resolution to remove them if they're expired. It'll just be a lot of cleanup. And the nice thing about existing businesses, even if they need to update their site plans and stuff, they've already been there, so they're not brand new applications. And so I think they'll be a little quicker and more efficient than a brand new one where the neighbors don't understand or know the impacts, and are just kind of, what if when they are thinking about impacts. So I think it will go. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew, because we did 15 illegal home-based businesses, and it created quite a storm for us to try to keep up and keep following up and meeting with the property owners and getting them on the correct path, and whether that was CUP or and then we don't particularly want to be super heavy-handed, and so we don't want to shut someone down that's been operating for 20 years unknown. And so we really want to take the approach that let's work with this person and let's get them to where they need to be. So just kind of, we really want to start with that person and end with that person. And so you guys see a lot more of us probably than you have before, because it's really important to us. Once you've kind of established a level of trust with someone, I think that it's important to them as well for us to continue walking them through that process.
David Carter, Commissioner, that's super helpful, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Ashworth, I'll take a stab at a question. So most of on that theme of the home-based businesses and the violations, so currently is your list solely based on the complaint? That's how the complaint numbers, or have you found out about non-compliant businesses in other ways?
When I started, I was given a list of 360 that we thought might be unpermitted home businesses. And part of the initial research was going through that list to figure out which of those were valid. So that was a big part of the list. If they come to us as a complaint, they're a higher priority at that point. And we walk them through quicker. But just trying to manage all of the workflow and focus on life safety, like violations and complaints first, and then bringing in the other home businesses as we can.
And if I might, one more observation I have is on open space. So I'm keenly interested in open space. And I know you've got a planner coming on that's going to deal with that, plus a whole lot of other things. So it hardly seems enough. But do you have in mind sort of how you would define open space in terms of how much area would qualify as open space, what kind of space would be open space, and any sort of goals as percentage of our rural landscape? Any of those features that you have an idea of?
Tonya Voigt, Zoning Director. So we do not. And part of that is we want the public and we want the community to set those parameters. And so we're really trying not to come in saying we need to protect floodplain. Floodplain needs to be open space, or we need to put agricultural ground in that, or we need more parks and we need hiking trails and we need biking trails. We're really trying to kind of take a step back. And we're going to do a kickoff here. I think it will be towards fall of this year. We do have some consultant funds as well available for the open space program to help us kind of do that long range planning, have public meetings, send out surveys, get public input, and kind of feel out the public and what their desires are as well. There are an awful lot of things that can go into an open space program. And everyone, I believe, would probably have a different answer of what they think open space should be. So I think it's really just about the community setting the goals and prioritizing what they believe is most important.
If I
Thank
may,
you, Commissioner Ashworth. Any other Commissioner Commissioner Shanklin? Oh,
Greg.
I'm sorry, did Ben, just a moment, Commissioner Shanklin, do you have a response to that? Ben, you had said.
Jeff
somebody-
Craig, Development Services. I just wanted to kind of add on to what Tanya was mentioning about open space. I think this goes back to a lot of the conversations that the commission had during Plan 2040 with Chapter 7 that you were discussing, kind of a lot of that about what it looks like, the form, where, and the why, and the how. So for those that remember the discussion during that process, I think a lot of what we talked about during that process is probably what's going to be coming up in that longer range plan coming online soon. So I think it's a community discussion that you kind of started in some ways with that plan, and it's going to kind of continue on going forward. And my apologies for interrupting there. I do apologize.
No, thank you, Jeff. I didn't hear you, so I apologize for talking over you. But I believe I was on. It was Commissioner Shanklin that had raised his hand. Please.
Greg Shanklin, Planning Commissioner. I have just a series of questions and comments, mostly addressed to Tanya. But first of all, to have a rural parcel discussion without Karen Willie present, I think is unfortunate. The quality of commentary that she would have to offer, I think we shouldn't do without, and so there ought to be some way to finish this conversation with her, hopefully a subsequent meeting. I guess for Tanya, has this presentation been made to the county commissioners?
So Tonya Boyd, zoning director. Ben's component of where we are with conditional use permit site plans, we utilized a lot of that information to request the planner position in our office. And so, yes, all of that information, this parcel data has not been presented to the Board of County Commissioners. And we do intend to do a work session with them as well. This is relatively new information. We've only had just 2 weeks or so. And so, yes, we do plan to give this information as well to the Board of County Commission to see if this sparks anything. And if not, then it's, let's collect some more data and come back at a later time.
Okay, thanks. I think that's really important. To have this conversation without the benefit of the Lisa tool is somewhat unsatisfying. And so I wonder, how quickly will we have the ability to couple the understanding of the need to preserve quality agricultural soils with the information on the development of rural parcels?
I think they will go hand in hand quite easily. I believe that the Lisa tool will be on the August Planning Commission. If I'm correct, I'm not sure. I can have Jeff confirm that. But we're ready, and we're ready to present that data, have that information available, and let you guys kind of see what we've created. So it should be very short term when you'll be seeing it.
If there's some way for us to defer consideration of further, particularly AG1 rezonings until the time when we have these tools, I think that would be great, because we've been making a lot of decisions that we've made decisions on. Most of them have been deferrals, and we don't know whether or not we've done the right thing in voting to preserve ag land, or in some cases, once we've made our recommendation, the county has made decisions to the contrary. And we really don't know without those tools whether we're making good decisions or not. And then the how-to questions that you finished your presentation with. And by the way, if we could get copies of your presentations, that would be really great. But the how-to questions you raised, to me, have to be coupled with, to me, it's a two-pronged solution, a two-pronged analysis that we're facing. And one of the prongs is the urban density. And so we can't look at the development of rural land without understanding the intensity with which we could develop the land within the urban boundaries. And so I'd just like to make that comment. So thank you very much.
Jeff Craig, Planning and Development Services. Just to add, kind of, Tonya's correct on that one. We are anticipating that system, the lead system, to be coming to the Planning Commission for consideration at your August meeting at this time.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission. I guess this one's to Jeff. Are we going to get the Lisa system before the return of the solar farm issue? I guess I'm asking when the solar one's coming back to us in relation to having tools.
This is Becky Pepper, Planning Manager. Both of those text amendments are tentatively scheduled to come back to you in August.
Okay. Because wherever we go with that, that's another stressor on open ag land. So we're going to have an interesting conversation there. But Tonya, I do have a question for you. In watching some of the county budget hearings, meetings, whatever they were calling them, when you made a presentation. You made a comment about the difficulty of enforcing some of the conditions that are placed on conditional use permits. Can you give some examples of the ones that are hardest and suck up more staff time than they're worth? I mean, we're putting on conditions and every one of them makes sense at the time, but you're out there and you're tasked with enforcing these things. Which ones are just kind of, which ones were you referencing?
Tonya Boyd, zoning director. So I'm trying to think of a few just off the top of my head. One is always drainage. People really stick to drainage concerns. And when there are not conditions attached regarding drainage issues and it becomes a property owner to property owner dispute, we get involved in a lot of drainage disputes. And that's why we added to the zoning regulations a component that allows us to do drainage studies when development is proposed, so that we have the ability to not guess whether it's going to create a drainage concern or not. We can have the applicant do a drainage study if they're serious about what they want to do, and then take that information and make, you know, the best decision for all of those landowners in the area. So that would be one situation. We have one that we're working on right now where the hours of operation were presented to the Planning Commission for a CUP. The Planning Commission, if I'm getting this right, I think Ben can correct me if I'm not quite getting it right. The Planning Commission recommended certain hours of operation for the CUP. It got to the Board of County Commission level. The Board of County Commissioners thought those restrictions were too stringent and thought that it would really kind of hamper the business. And so those hours of operation were changed. And then what that did was that created an awful lot of freedom for that applicant to have a lot more traffic going in and out of that property. So dust has become a concern, the traffic has become a concern, and no one really anticipated that component of it. So we asked the township to do a traffic count. And the first time there were some concerns that it was tampered with because it was so high. And so then the second time they did it again, and there was a traffic count before the driveway to the CUP, and then right after the driveway where people typically, you know, would just be going straight through, not turning into the property. And it was a difference of like 100 cars a week versus 1,200 cars a week that one business was creating. And there are houses all the way to that business. And so one of the neighboring property owners is and they're just voluntarily paying for it. I don't even think that neighbor has called us and complained. They've just started enrolling in dust palliative because of the traffic impacts. Other neighbors have voiced concerns. We're currently working with legal to determine, because the condition wasn't set on traffic or dust, we don't actually know that we can bring the CUP back to the Planning Commission or back to the Board of County Commissioners, because it wasn't a condition that was set forth. So I think where we're at is we're trying to be just super careful with our comments. We want you guys to see our comments, because if we're not getting the conditions right, then we may be at a situation where we don't legally have the authority to bring that CUP back if there are problems, if that condition hasn't been set and they're not violating their CUP. Ben, do you have any more examples of some that recent ones that we've had some problems with enforcement?
It's generally related to traffic and dust 90% of the time. It's led us to start thinking along the lines of, is there an equitable approach where businesses are, you know, they pay in a certain percentage based on known traffic flow, and but how do you equally apply that, especially when there's already nearly 200 approved? So we're toying with ideas, but generally that's the biggest complaint.
And I can think of one more that we have had a few issues with our noise. So when a condition is set, we have examples of where a condition was set and the CUP is not supposed to exceed a certain decibel noise level. And so a neighbor will complain, and then we'll go to the property line and, we'll listen to try to figure out if we think, that it's too loud, not loud. And then for one, we had to hire a professional to come out and actually do the decibel ratings. Some of our conditions also conflict with the hours, like when we're at work and when things are going wrong. And that's often noise. Often noise is at nights through like Airbnbs or, those type of like overnight stay situations where there might be drinking involved and those type of things. So the conditions are a little bit more problematic if we're not at work. And then we try to steer away from conditions that would mean we'd have to camp out at a property to watch, like in the evenings. We really don't, want to do that if we can help it. So.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission. Thanks, Tonya. There's a lot of frustration, I think, all around. I mean, everyone here, we're working on long-range plans, trying to be as consistent as we can in our decisions or recommendations. And as Commissioner Shanklin pointed out, I mean, then it goes on to the political realm and things just, I can think of two that, we've made recommendations and it gets flipped on us at the county commission. And you just gave another one that I wasn't even aware of changing hours of operations, because we talk about those and what the impact will be to make a recommendation, and you can do all the planning you want, but then it gets to a commission and it's a whole different animal. So it's kind of rough, but what I'm hearing from you is we need to pay even more attention to the conditions in the conditional use permits, and by analogy in the city to the special use permits, than we probably have, because you're raising some issues that are very interesting. Is that why we're getting like 5-year review periods so we can go back and modify things? Or should we have a faster review period when we can catch an initial 2 or 3 year one, so we can go in and clean up some of these issues like the dust palliative or decibel levels or things like that, and review it, even though it might go for 10 years, but would a shorter review period be helpful? Because I think that's when we can modify things if you have complaints to justify it.
Yeah, I think that we always thought we had the power and authority to bring something back if we were getting complaints, but because now we actually are in that situation and discussing that with legal, we've realized that what we actually would like to do is we plan to come back to the Planning Commission with some text amendment changes from the zoning regulations. So they're new regs. We missed some things. We've, worded things strange in a few spots, and we have kind of this growing list of modifications, and we would like to change the zoning regulations to state that even if a conditional use permit is having complaints, that we then have the authority to bring it back to the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. So that's kind of how we are planning on, instead of putting that burden on you, we'd like to just fix the regs and make them clear and allow us, no matter what the complaint is, if it's something that we cannot work through with that property owner, because the specific one with all the traffic and the dust palliative, the property owner agreed to pay for a fence with the neighbor, then backed out, didn't want to pay for the fence with the neighbor. The neighbor got stuck putting the fence up and paying for all of the fence. And then they refused to pay for dust palliative. So in this situation, it needs to come back because we're not able to, remedy the situation between the neighbors and that property owner, and it's a new CUP, so now's the time to bring it back. So I think we're going to we plan to bring those text amendments to you in fall, and so we will plan to remedy that situation with the zoning regulation text amendment.
Thank you. I look forward to that discussion. It'll be interesting.
Commissioner Ashworth, yes, that actually sounds like a better avenue than a shorter window for review. Might catch things, but that seems to add, like it might add burden, a lot more workload on what you already have. Any other comments from commissioners? I might make just one quick question about land development rights, purchasing of land development rights and a funding source for that. Because purchasing land development rights seems to me is a great tool to have, not only to maintain an agricultural environment, but open space. And so are there any models that you're looking at or any other locations that might provide a model for a funding source for that?
So we have just some super kind of intro, very beginning of research started. And we are, we've pulled several of those programs from other areas. I think that Iowa City in Johnson County, Iowa is one of those that we've pulled their model. There's also a county in Colorado that we have their information. And they've also incorporated other things in addition to that. So instead of just having, zoning regulations at a certain density, they will allow subdivisions, but with much higher protection rates, say 75 or 80% of the land must be protected. And then you can have small, subdivisions in those areas. So we're kind of just kicking around a lot of kind of ideas and thoughts. So we've started just the super beginning stages, but we're not very far in. We've been busy with UGA and Lisa and zoning regs. So, but we're very excited about it and we look forward to digging in.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Thomas.
Charlie Thomas, Commissioner, I'm sure I will find out more about this young lady, Lisa, at some time. Would anyone like to give me kind of a brief overview of the importance of this, whatever it is?
I'm happy to. I was thinking I needed to Google because right off the top of my head, I couldn't remember what it stood for. Land evaluation site assessment. There we go. Came back to me. So this is a tool that a lot of counties, including Riley County in the state of Kansas, and then lots of counties nationwide have partnered with the Conservation District. We look at the quality of the soil, so what soil types it is, and then we have all of these parameters that allow us to look at a piece of ground in this tool and kind of rate the land as to whether it should be protected and preserved. Those would be the highest quality soils, obviously not steep slopes. Floodplain plays a factor in it, slopes play a factor in it. And we take the National Crop Commodity Index as well that talks about how productive the soil is. And then we take the National Rangeland Index as well. That focuses more just on rangeland and how productive and what type of quality of soil is there. We add all these factors in and they're all weighted. And then at the end, a number pops out that says whether, it should be protected. If it's just, set for medium protection, would mean, it's pretty developed around it. There's lots of housing already there, and then, low protection would mean, it should be developed and used to the fullest extent that can be to provide housing or commercial development or whatever it might be. But it allows us to look at each application that comes before us, and it would only be conditional use permits, rezones, and that would be going out of AG1 to AG2, and then site plans possibly. I think we do have the ability to also look at the LISA tool for site plans, especially if it's a brand new site that's getting wiped clean. So in the past, this board has had to really work with planning staff and our office, and it's been a little bit subjective. We look at it on a map. We look at whether it's currently being farmed, whether it could be farmed, is it not being farmed? And then we look at what type of soil it has on it. Is it prime soils, is it not? But, staff has really had to put all of that work into it in a little bit more subjective way to get that same result. And this kind of takes all that subjectivity out of it. And it provides just a tool that you can plug in any property in the county and get a score.
Well, at least I know who she is now. And I don't know who could answer this, but is anyone new coming in and trying to buy large parcels of farmland? Are we getting, I don't want to say younger, but are we getting new people come in who want to start farming in Douglas County? Or are we really just talking about farms that have been here for generations, perhaps?
White zoning director, both. So we just met with a property owner that's a brand new property owner, moved here from Colorado. We looked at their barn. They're currently working with the conservation district on some farming and orchard options. And they just moved here from another state. We also recently met with a couple who are planning a vineyard near the unincorporated town of Lone Star. And they plan to open a winery, and they're first-time farmers. And so one of the gentlemen had traveled in Europe and had been a part of the Wolf program, and he really enjoyed making wine. And so he's brought it back to Kansas and is growing a really rare type of grapes, which I'm not a wine drinker, so I don't know all the specialties of it. But yeah, I think we really have both. I think, the goal really for us is to sustain what we have and then to encourage new to come in.
Commissioner Thomas again, I live out in the country and have 150 acres. I don't know anyone that does not already have a farm that is coming in to have 150 acres of wheat or corn or any other row crops. I do see people that come in that will do a vineyard, that will do an orchard, that will do, I don't want to call them micro farms, but I don't see, if we don't protect the farms that are here, I don't see people coming in to purchase the farms and keep them in productive agriculture. I don't know who those, they're not anybody that I know, certainly out in the county that does that. So are we trying to encourage keeping the large family farms together, or the guy that comes in from Colorado that's been to Europe that does these things? What is our focus?
I would say that the zoning regulations are not stringent enough to protect large-scale agriculture in Douglas County. So commodity row crop farming is something that is phasing out because the county is parceling up. And so I don't have an answer for that. I think we're trying to encourage small scale farming, specialty crops, vineyards, those type of things, because the land is being parceled up to smaller acreage. And those are the only things that are viable on the smaller acreage. And there's not a lot of people who come in with the equipment to be able to row crop for first time and have the money for that and have the money for land and can buy all that equipment and get started. So I completely agree, Charlie. I wish I had an answer for that, but I do believe that the zoning regulations, and I don't know that it's zoning that needs to fix that, but they are not stringent enough to protect large scale commodity row crop farming.
Well, since I am the new person on the commission, perhaps I don't, well, I shouldn't even say perhaps, I know I don't fully understand what our purpose is and what input we are supposed to give. And at the same time, as someone who does live in the unincorporated areas of Douglas County, I have been to commission meetings where I see the elected officials bend over backwards to protect Old West Lawrence or to protect the feeling of some portion of the city. Is this group, is this commission that I'm part of, is there and I think there is, but is there the same kind of effort to protect rural Old West Lawrence kind of feeling, the rural ethos, the rural, is that where we are? Is that what we are looking for?
Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services Director, to your question, and maybe planning commissioners will help me on this. I think during the discussion, during the comprehensive plan and some of the items that were included in there, I think you do see some of that foundation stones being put in there to protect that rural economy, that rural urban divide, and kind of that sense of place that unincorporated Douglas County gives us. And many planning commissioners during that discussion articulated it far better than I could. But I think you're starting to see that become a cornerstone of how Lawrence and Douglas County views itself in the greater whole. And I think that really stands out in the pages of Plan 2040 and a lot of the work that's been kind of going on behind the scenes there. So I think it shows itself well in the pages there, but I think it's going to probably continue to come up as part of both discussions here at the Planning Commission, but also in our long-range planning efforts that we do that'll get kicked off in 2022 and working its way around the city and the county. I think it's going to really formulate quite well in those plans and become more tangible as we get those documents online.
And Commissioner Thomas, again, I'm sure as I become more familiar with the intricacies of this commission, that I will probably better understand the role that I am to play, we are to play, and I look forward to it.
Commissioner Ashworth, and we look forward to your participation. And yes, I can reiterate what Jeff Crick said is a large portion of Plan 2040. There was a great deal of emphasis on the rural character of Douglas County. And I can say that as a city person listening to the commissioners discuss these issues month after month, there is definitely a feeling of trying to find that balance with urban density and rural Douglas County. I think there's a great combination of city and county perspectives on this commission. So I've been really pleased, and I can say that as a city person, I've learned a great deal from the commissioners that have an eye towards Douglas, the county. So, and I've really appreciated that. I think you'll find that.
Commissioner Thomas, again, I didn't notice that when I was talking about Greg going morel hunting, that he was hopefully not giving away his secret areas out there in the country. But Greg, is that something we should look forward to, coming to your house for a meal of morels?
It's possible. We'll have to see.
Great. Well, Commissioner Ashworth, again, are there other comments in relation to the county zoning presentation that we have just heard? Commissioner Carpenter?
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner. I just want to follow up on some of that. I mean, with Plan 2040, as Jeff pointed out, when he was in a position of planning director and drafting a lot of the changes and the whole thing, that we flipped Horizon 2020 on its head. So Plan 2040 started looking from the county into the city. And if you go through the plan, you'll see there's a greater emphasis on the rural areas. And you being on the commission is exactly what we were asking the county commission to do, to get more voices, more county appointees that are from the unincorporated areas that can bring those perspectives to us that live in the city and don't have as much experience. That's where Karen has really been here back when I started Penny Van Auken. I mean, we had people that have been able to provide us information, and tonight's been great. I've learned more about the intricacies of township roads and planning than I have in years, just in one night, and it's been wonderful. So you're a welcome voice. Speak up, let us know the perspectives, because this joint planning commission of city county is a rarity. There aren't many joint city county planning commissions in the country. You just go to Johnson County. Johnson County is a planning commission. Edgerton's a planning commission. Gardner's a planning commission. Olathe is a planning commission. They don't interact. They don't share ideas. They don't work together on longer range plans. Because with Plan 2040, we've really started looking at longer range plans, because we've got climate changes coming. We're going to lose productivity of farmland. It's here, it's happening now. And so as part of these discussions, preserving agricultural land is even more important because its productivity is going to start falling. We're in that part of the country that's going to have more drought, and we're going to lose productivity. So everything's going to be changing, and we really need this joint effort. And so I'm glad you're here to provide some of that longer term perspective that will help add to this. Thanks.
Great, Commissioner Ashworth. Any further comments on this subject for us? I'm losing my words. It's getting late. So although not as late as it can be, just a warning to Commissioner Thomas. So any other comments on the county? I really appreciate them coming and bringing this to us and giving us a whole lot to chew on. There's so much coming down the pike.
Yeah, thank you for letting us throw the kitchen sink at you. We really appreciate that. We have a lot of stuff coming in as well that we're trying to, process and make the best use of that information and really have dialogue. And this is what we need. So we're very grateful to be here, and we appreciate you having us.
Great. So at this point, I forget, do we vote to recess till Wednesday? I've forgotten if that's a vote or we just.
Jeff Craig, Planning Development Services Director. We would need a motion and a second to recess out to the Wednesday meeting.
Okay, let's just get. So first, let me, before we end that, let me thank our very hard working, or the city and county planning staff that work so hard to bring this all to us and listen to all our questions and talk endlessly about minimum maintenance on roads, which somebody thought about, and all these zoning intricacies, like Commissioner Carpenter said, we just haven't. It's great to just be able to talk about them, and there's new things that we learn all the time. So I just really want to thank the staff. I want to thank our volunteer planning and thank him for jumping right in with questions and comments. So, and thanks again to Kurt for making this Zoom possible. So can I have a motion? Yes.
David Carter, Commissioner, I will move to recess, but first I would like to thank our Vice Chair for stepping up to chair this meeting. this evening. It's not a comment. I know Commissioner Carpenter had a similar situation in his second meeting as vice chair. So it's a rare honor/burden. And I just want to thank you for managing this meeting so well.
We should do this to every vice chair, make them chair the second meeting.
So that said, I would move to recess until Wednesday.
Can I have a second, please? Commissioner Rexroad. Any last comments? All right, can I have a roll call for vote? Jeff Crick, please.
Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services. Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Rexroad?
Yes.
Commissioner Shanklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, everybody. See you Wednesday night.
Thanks, everyone.